Hello everyone, welcome to Room and Board. My name is Chris George, and today we are taking a look at the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Deepak Chopra's foray into the board gaming industry, Deepak Galactic. As a complete tangent before this video even begins, I was watching a clip of Deepak Chopra on The Ellen Show trying to get literally any information about him so I could make a better opening joke. And I didn't learn anything, but I did quite enjoy the audience question period where people would ask him these really intense questions like, I have cancer, how do I stay positive? Or how do I be brave? And he'd answer very quickly, immediately, just saying, just do the thing you're afraid of. And then the audience would be overwhelmed with gratitude, with emotion and gratitude. Wow, thank you for your insight. Nobody has ever told me that before. Just do it. Just do the thing that I can't do. Just do it. So with that out of the way, let me tell you some things that nobody has ever told you before. For those of you who are new to the channel, number 1, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I know so many other channels say it and you never do it. I never do it, but just this once, let's be brave. Let's do it. Let's just click it. And it is scientifically proven to reduce FOMO 10% to have my face popping up in the little YouTube thumbnails. I mean, it's been so effective that my mother has fled the internet altogether because Christmas and Easter have been too much for her already. But more importantly, number 2, this is a Room and Board original series where I put your excitement to the test. I don't want you not to back this game. I'd love for you to get this cool game if you are legitimately excited for it. And when it arrives, you won't open the box and say, when did I get this? And then immediately sell it off. Or wait 2 years, think you're gonna play it, and then immediately sell it off. Because you just got swept up in the campaign and you weren't actually excited about the game itself. But before we get into the 5 reasons you shouldn't back, let's talk about what is exciting about this game, because there is certainly a lot to be excited about. It certainly wouldn't have raised over 1 million euros on day 1 if that wasn't the case. And the first off, for me at least, is the theme. If you know nothing about Deepak Galactic, buckle up, because it's a very funny theme. Who doesn't want to be a space mining dwarf heading into the caverns to hack as many minerals as they possibly can while blowing apart a bunch of space bugs with a flamethrower? Only to have the allure of a nice cold beer at the end of their shift to keep their morale track up. I think the morale track especially is incredibly funny, being motivated by all the delicious barley bugs that you manage to uncover as you chip your way through the space rock. That is a theme that, I don't know, it's ticking boxes that I didn't even know I had to tick. And then mechanically, I really like, well, a lot of the mechanics. I like that you explore the cave further as you progress through the game, so you don't know the setup of the cave. And that, to me, also speaks thematically and makes thematic sense for this game. And I like that you can only find your weapon upgrade tokens in these hidden cave segments, which obviously makes sense from a mechanic standpoint. You don't want people leveling up their character right at the starting line. But it also, for me at least, helps lean into the theme of going deeper into the asteroid, I don't know where you are, some sort of space rock, that you're getting better ore and you can upgrade your stuff, and most importantly, gives that sense of progressing and getting better as you go through the mission, which I personally really like in a lot of these types of games. I find that very satisfying. And as for a lot of the other gameplay elements, which we'll talk about a bit more later on, to me, they feel fun and fresh. The choices you get to make on your turn feel like they have a dynamic range. And I really do think that, so there is a lot to like here. But at the same time, if I'm being honest, this one is also really easy for me to resist. And maybe it's because I've been doing this series for a long time now, or it might just be because of the lack of FOMO marketing that are often around these sorts of campaigns, which is a positive for me. It feels really refreshing, and it does make me believe that a lot of people are coming to this game for the right reasons. And that's awesome. That's what I love to see. People getting things that they love. And even their early bird Kickstarter incentive, there was a metal coin that you got for free if you pledged in the first 24 hours. And I understand the need for early birds. It's incredibly important to gain traction on Kickstarter to get that initial boost of funding. But I also like that this is a thing that I don't think appeals to a lot of people's fear of missing out as something like a new character class might. And so I like seeing that. I like that they have a €1 pledge front and center saying you'll get access to the pledge manager, which I shouldn't have to mention, which should be the norm for people who are interested and want to get updates. But some companies like to try to make you pay it all up front. And I like the variety of pledge options as well. There's a standee pledge, a mini pledge, and then a collector all-in pledge. And did I mention you get to be cool space mining dwarves? So there is a bunch to get excited about. You know me, I'm an excitable guy, which certainly doesn't help when I have to take all those blood pressure tests. It's just my natural energy. I swear I don't have high cholesterol, but you're not here for the excitement, I'm assuming. Or maybe you are. Hey, I like to see you. But most likely you're here for the 5 reasons you shouldn't back Deep Rock Galactic. If you are on the fence, if you're contemplating getting it or not getting it, here are some things to consider before jumping in completely. And reason number 5 is that you'd rather play the video game. And I talk about this a bit in IP-centered games generally, but I think it is fairly significant here as well. It seems like everything, even the video that they use the little ad-libs from the video game to jog your memory that this was a cool video game. Everything seems to tie back into it as you move forward to support this IP. And by all accounts, it is a fun IP. I was talking about this game with my friend Zach, and he said, oh, no way, that's a board game. I have the video game. I love it. It's a heck of a lot of fun. I should go re-download it. It got 9 out of 10 on IGN. It's really well rated across the board from other websites. And it is an intense and presumably fun first-person shooter filled with flashing lights and lots of space bugs. And on the one hand, I think being a fan of the IP is a fantastic reason to get a game. Obviously, it is a proven thing that you like, so why not get more of it? But I think it is going to be very hard for Deep Rock Galactic to replicate the feeling, the heart-pumping elements that the first-person shooter brings you. I was grilling my friend Zach on why he likes the video game and what may not translate here, and he said, basically, even if I got it, I know the experience of being a space mining dwarf on my computer, and if I want that feeling, I have this way of immediately accessing that rather than going through all the setup that a board game entails. And I guess the main thing to consider here, if you are buying on the back of this IP or theme, is if the board game will be a flash in the pan in terms of your interest. And are you just liable to play the game you already love instead? Or are you interested in trying a different adaptation that does different things? Because you are not going to get the feeling of adrenaline that the first-person shooter brings you, where you're communicating with your friends over phone or whatever. To the left! I'm getting swarmed here! Watch out for that giant tentacle! The feeling of stuff jumping out at you, the feeling of going back to the dwarf station and having a much needed rest while you sip on your beer and choosing the type of beer that you're going to drink so that you get a different effect for the next run or whatever it is. That's not necessarily what you're going to get here. You are going to get a tactical dice chucker where you can position yourself on the board and work with the map tiles to use your actions efficiently so you don't get overwhelmed. So really consider those differences and make sure you know the experience that you will be provided. Now, reason number 4 you shouldn't back is that you don't need more minis to paint. Or not to paint? That is the question. So this is your standard mini cool figures check. So many of these Kickstarters, and actually almost all of the Kickstarters that broke the $1 million margin last year, have been focused around minis. And it makes sense. Producing minis is expensive, certainly more expensive than sculpting unique meeples, and therefore there's an added cost to the pledges, and when it costs more, it's going to reach that $1 million bar that is the mark for this series a little bit sooner. And I know a lot of people get games that are completely centric on minis because they feel they enhance the table presence, and I totally get that. I buy into that. Mentally, and in my gut, I say, yes, I need that, or else my experience will pale in comparison to what it could be. And for something as thematic as Deep Rock Galactic, I see this being a legitimate point that you will want to get the minis on this. I definitely get that. But I also know that a lot of people are drawn towards miniature games because they are far more talented than I am, and they can paint them, and they enjoy painting them. And this is also incredibly valid, an incredibly valid way to enjoy this hobby. I'm not here to stop you from getting stuff that you like. I'm just here to ask you how many minis is too mini? And if your primary goal is to paint them, how many games do you already have that are unpainted? And are you going to want to invest the time painting these over others? See, I'm having an interesting decision with Ankh, Gods of Egypt right now by Come On, I have an all-in pledge for Ankh. I've got tons of minis. I thought for sure I would love this game. I love Rising Sun. I love Blood Rage. I read through the rulebook on it. I thought, yes, this is all cool. And now, after numerous plays, I'm not so sure that I love the game. And I've been wanting to make a full review on it, but I still feel like I need to play it more because I'm not so sure. So where I'm at right now is I honestly don't know if it's worth the time and effort that it would take to paint them. If it's not going to be something that I'm absolutely thrilled every time it hits the table. Because it's a lot of work, it really is. And you want to be able to showcase your work. You want to be able to play with your toys that you've painted, obviously. So while I think the minis are cool and they do feel integral to the theme, I understand this sentiment. I still think that the gameplay should come first and that they really aren't that necessary. You know what game has minis just for the base characters and standees for all the monsters? The #1 game on BoardGameGeek.com. I mean, at least until the miniature campaign comes out, at which case, well, I guess you can get minis for everything then. Anyway, this kind of brings us to our #3, which is that the stretch goals are tailored to those higher pledges. So if you're not getting the mini pledge, obviously you're going to opt for that standard retail pledge. But there are hardly any stretch goals that make it feel worthwhile to get it, even though it is at that lower price point and it feels like a bit of a deal. It certainly feels like a deal to me. I saw the price point and I thought, oh boy, is this the gem? Is this the diamond I've been searching for? But it certainly isn't, because your experience versus getting it now versus getting it later is going to be pretty much the same if you're opting for that standard pledge. The deluxe pledge probably won't be widely available. I understand the reasoning behind that. The standard pledge, as is the case with a lot of standard Kickstarters, you might as well just wait until retail then, if the stretch goals aren't making it worth your while. And I kind of hate when companies do this. I understand it, but I still hate it. Because the fun of participating in these Kickstarters is unlocking stuff and seeing what you get for free, and feel like you're getting significant upgrades to make the shipping cost worth it. I talk about that all the time on this channel. But when most of the stretch goals are focused on that deluxe tier, it kind of kills that excitement a bit for me. And most of them are. I mean, even the box insert is for deluxe only. What does that mean? Does that mean your standard retail isn't even going to get an insert? I don't know. They probably are. They have to, because they're going to have Dwarven minis, so there's got to be some sort of insert. So I'm sure that stretch goal was just that the deluxe box now has an insert, which it always was going to have. And maybe I've misread it. This campaign page isn't the clearest, to be fair. Even the shipping section only tells you one estimate on shipping for the deluxe pledge. So if you're getting the standee version or you're getting the collector's edition, who knows how much you're going to have to pay for shipping. I certainly don't, because they haven't told me. But with every stretch goal being focused around that deluxe or collector's pledge, check in with your local game store. See if they were going to get some copies in. They probably will, because it is a huge success right now. But reach out to them and really try to measure, calculate it with your shipping cost, if you can get it for a significant margin cheaper, because chances are you probably will. Which kind of also brings us to a half point. I'm putting a half point here so I stay with 5 and I don't break my streak and go with something outrageous like 6. And also because I don't really have that much to say about it. But if you're looking for community involvement with your Kickstarter campaign, this is certainly not the one to jump on board. This product is almost finished. It's basically a pre-order. You can tell that it's almost finished because shipping will commence very soon, and they're projecting that everyone will have their pledges by the end of 2022, which is an insane turnaround for something of this sort of scale. So you know you're getting pretty much a finished product. There won't be too many changes or stuff that you can even have input on. And on top of that, there's currently an underwhelming amount of engagement on the project. The updates, at least currently, are very underwhelming, and that's because they don't really have anything to update. I really do like that they are listening to their backers, though. People expressed that when the plastic tokens came out, there's an add-on for plastic tokens that they unlocked at 1.5 million euros. People expressed, why is that not in the collector's pledge? And they said, okay, we're gonna make 2 collector's pledges, take out the art prints and mouse pads that some people may not like, and throw in the plastic tokens, which a lot of people enjoy, I think, a lot more, just across the board. So I really appreciate their willingness to create these bundle pledges to make it easier for their backers. And that's awesome that they have been listening to that sort of feedback. But in terms of feedback on the game itself, I don't feel like there will be a lot of room for changing many gameplay elements of it. So that's just something to be aware of when you're backing, that this is pretty much the final product. And what you see is pretty much what you're going to get. Which brings us to number 2. We've talked a lot about things outside of the mechanics and the gameplay, but I want to delve a little bit more into the mechanics. So our number 2 you shouldn't back is that if the gameplay doesn't excite you. And I use excite deliberately here. I think it's too much money to spend at a game that just kind of excites you. Or if you think, yeah, that sounds all right. I think there should be something in the mechanics or part of the game that actively excites you. There should be something here that draws you in more than anything else on your shelf, because that will give you the reason to pull it off your shelf more than twice in your life. So here is the main core mechanic, the core gameplay loop. And it's that on your turn, you get to choose one of 11 actions and you get to make that choice 3 times. So you get 3 action points and you get to spend them on moving, shooting, axe chopping, throwing throwable objects, overclocking your weapon, calling down a resupply, getting supplies or exchanging supplies with your teammates, helping up a knocked dwarf, or reviving them if the dwarf fell down, or if the dwarf fell down and bumped his head, which are 2 very different things in the game. And I think it's important to consider the decisions that you get to make on your turn and to consider this gameplay loop, because that's what you're going to be doing for 2 hours. And if that doesn't seem like a blast, you shouldn't be getting it. But if moving 3 spaces and setting up line of sight and then picking a square to activate your weapon on and being able to shoot a bunch of stuff in a row, I really like that certain weapons, when you target a space, the dice that you roll get to carry over into some other spaces. Like the flamethrower, you get to just target your initial space, and then if you have extra flames, you get to hit things that are potentially next to them. I think that's so cool. And I think that's going to feel awesome going through it. I like that you have to roll dice when you chop a wall to see how many minerals you're able to chop out. And I think the ability to overclock your weapon and upgrade it for the remainder of the mission, or spend your resources and call down a supply drop, and that can have stuff that will heal you. Or you have to time out when to run over to your friend and heal them or help them up. All of that does feel really satisfying to me. Too much. I think I'm hyping myself up for it. For me, that sort of loop feels interesting. And I have to say, the rulebook that they have up is really well done, very easy to read through. And if you haven't read it yet, this is your reminder to look it up for yourself and see if these mechanics enable you to get at least as pumped as I'm able to get for them. I think that's a fairly decent bar. Which brings us to reason number 1. You shouldn't back if you want to support the company more. Now, this is a radical point, and I'm hesitant to bring it up, but I think it is an interesting thought that I haven't yet talked about in one of these. And I don't want to be the guy who just repeats the same points over and over, because I can't come up with unique content. So I think it is worthwhile talking about. But the reason I am hesitant to bring it up as a point is because I'm not completely certain of the math here, or how much of a cut pledge managers take for late pledges, pledges that haven't added on any money or haven't contributed any money to that pledge manager. And if they take more of a cut when things were added than if it was just being transferred over as a credit. And I'd love, if any publishers are watching, write in the comments your experiences on fees, or just send me a private message, send me an email if you don't want your rates to be publicly broadcast. That's completely cool. I'm very interested to know this and to be able to convey this to everyone else. But if you remember that €1 pledge that we were talking about earlier, that gets you access to the pledge manager, well, Kickstarter takes their 5 to 7% fee on the total raised on Kickstarter. And it doesn't apply to things raised in the pledge manager. So presumably, if you were to spend your money later, if you were to come in at that €1 pledge and indicate your willingness to purchase at a later time, and then purchase at a later time, Kickstarter only gets 5 to 7% of your €1 and not 5 to 7% of your €130, or whatever you end up spending. I hate fees. I hate website fees with a passion. I do everything in my power to circumvent them. And yeah, I get that websites are providing a service and that the fees pay for that service and they enable the website to run and be developed. I understand. But maybe Kickstarter would stop losing so many customers the game found if they lowered their fees for even repeat customers. Because at this point, it's the board game industry that's driving traffic to Kickstarter, and not necessarily the other way around. So again, I'm not confident of my hypothesis, and I really would be interested, anyone weigh in the comments if you have some knowledge or experience, but it's something that I've considered for a long time in terms of how I'm able to get more money to the publisher and to the company and to the person that is creating these games. Because I talked about this a long time ago in the Table Talk episode I have on the price of board games and if board games are becoming more expensive, or if board games are too expensive and is that cost too prohibitive. And the amount that actually goes into the company's pockets is always surprisingly low to me. And so that, for me as a consumer, makes me want to get the most of my money into the person who has done the work in creating the bulk of the inspiration or creativity or intellectual property side of things. And I think that not giving Kickstarter 5 to 7% of the profit, if you are sure that you are interested in backing, and you can afford to do it either now or at a later date. Obviously, in terms of finances, some months might be better than others. If you don't do it now, you may spend that on something else. All of these considerations, too many considerations apply here. But the general sentiment is, how do we get more money into the game designer's hands and out of Kickstarter's hands, really? And I know for a lot of companies, the toss-up is, well, we have a guaranteed sale versus a potential sale. And for sure, that makes sense as well. And that's why they want to see these large numbers, because they know they have guaranteed sales and not people who will dip out when they see that the shipping costs have suddenly gone up. And they are not beholden. They haven't already spent a certain amount of money, and they wouldn't be taking a huge loss if they didn't just pay the shipping costs anyway. And then the other downside of doing it this way is that you don't get to contribute to the unlocking of stretch goals, which are definitely real and won't be added to every copy anyway, regardless of how much is raised. And in some cases they are real. In some cases, you need these guaranteed sales to get the extra stuff. So I don't know if this is something that should be done en masse, but I thought it was an interesting point to consider. So that is why it is the #1 reason why not to back. Obviously applicable to more than just this game. Anyway, that's it. That's where I'm currently at. This one has pulled me in gameplay-wise. I'm quite interested. But for me, again, it's something that I wouldn't mind checking out when it hits retail, or I could get it on the secondhand market. For a cheaper cost down the line, it's not giving me that sense of, I need this in my life immediately. Why haven't I had it? It's giving me a sense of, yeah, this looks like a cool, fun game, and I'm sure anyone who gets it will probably enjoy it. But as always with these sorts of things, don't listen to me. Don't listen to the other reviewers. Listen to your gut. You know if you are excited about this game or not. You know if you'll get it to the table. And you also know that if those things don't matter to you and you just want a nice pretty box to fill up a spot on your shelf, which, hey, you do you, as Deepak Chopra would say. Anyway, that's it for me. Thank you so much for watching. If you've made it this far, hey, consider subscribing and hitting a like on the video. It helps a lot. Certainly helps offset all the people who dislike it because I'm telling them not to get their favorite toy. I appreciate you being here. Once again, my name is Chris George, and oh no, I don't have a catchphrase. And you know what's even worse? Deepak doesn't have a catchphrase, so that would have been the perfect ending joke. Floating in the mind-body zone with his, I don't know, 5 chakras or something. Are there 7? No, there's 7 chakras. There's 7. This has been 7 chakras to back, Deepak Galactic, and I will see ya in the next one.